Hey there, it's Linda Brumbill, Remax Jazz, and I'm just here to give you the market update for March 2025. Let's talk spring market. What spring market? So right now, our spring market is probably the worst spring market we've seen in over a decade, even counting the market we saw in 2020 and 2021 with COVID and the shutdowns. So the new listings in March 2025 rose 32% compared to March 2024 numbers. March 2024, there was 1,472 listings compared to 1,937 we've seen this March. That's not unusual for March. Usually March is when all the sellers come out and the listings start to populate for the buyers. Nobody wants to move in the winter months, so quite often sellers and buyers will hold off and things slow down between December, January, and February. However, month by month for February and our new listings, they increased 58%, but the sales only went up 20.9%. So 58% more listings and 20.9% more sales is definitely not normal. And the average price of houses in Durham also dropped about 3% from 936 to about 911,000. So we can see a drop in sales, drop in price, and an increase in listings. In cottage country, things are slightly different. So the average price and sales increased by about 4.6% compared to last year. And there was a small increase in sales from 143 sales to 149 year over year. But keep in mind, Hastings tends to be more of cottage country territory. And so the market is different than Durham. In Hastings, it tends to get slow during the winter months and pick up this time of year because it's cottage country. Nobody looks at cottages, or few look at cottages in the middle of January, especially when you can't even access them. Weather is a big factor in cottage country, so they tend to attract more buyers and sellers in nicer weather, and keeping in mind that this winter was a really heavy, snowy winter, and then we had the ice storms March and April. So obviously that's going to slow down the amount of traffic coming through and the amount of listings going up, because for some, they couldn't even access their cottages to list them. Peterborough and Prince Edward County were also following the trends of less sales, but slightly higher sales prices. Peterborough faced about a 10% increase in listings despite having less sales. So clearly the market continues to slide closer to a balanced market. It's I wouldn't say it's a buyer's market, but it's certainly not a seller's market. The days of the seller's market, I think, are dwindling. So what does that mean? I don't know. Well, if I'm a buyer, can I get a deal? Well, yes and no. The good news is you'll probably have more to choose from as far as listings, because there is an increase of listings. So there will be more variety out there for you to look at. And because there's more listings, you may be less likely to be in a position where you're doing multiple offers. And because you're not going in multiple offers, you're going to be likely to be able to be in a position to put in conditions in your offer, like a home inspection and time for financing, which is definitely a benefit to buyers. But keeping in mind that sellers are aware of how the market's going too. So depending on the seller and the agent, they're going to use this market and change their strategies a little bit. So the ones that are pricing their homes competitively, so a little lower than market value, are probably still going to see multiple offers. The ones that are pricing at market are less likely to see multiple offers, and the ones that are pricing over market are definitely going to sit there for a while. Some sellers haven't gotten the memo about the falling knife, and they still think that the market's this way when it's in fact more likely this way. So they're pricing their properties a little on the high side and then reducing and then waiting and reducing and waiting and reducing. So I like to call that the catch the falling knife, because you just keep trying to catch up with the market and drop your price until finally you get an offer. That's not the strategy you want to have if you're a seller. Unfortunately, sometimes sellers don't always listen to their agents, and that's just the way it goes. This is where a good agent is needed. For buyers, this is where you need an agent to be able to direct you and give you an idea of what homes are being priced at market, what are above market, and what are below market, and may go in multiples. So for instance, if everything in that subdivision is sold in the 650 to 750 range at the higher end or lower end, and they're listing at 599 and they're comparable to the others, there's a good chance they're going for multiples. If they're listed at 750 and taking offers anytime, there's a flag. So an agent will be able to give you an idea of what's sold, what's comparable, and ultimately if you're overpaying for the property or not. Because at the end of the day, financing will be an issue if the appraisal comes in below what you've offered. You don't ever want to be in a position where you've offered firm and now you can't close because you can't get the financing. A good agent will give you a good strategy and help you decide how you're going to market the property. Maybe you're not in a position that you need to sell right away and you can put it close to market and take offers. Maybe it's an attractive location or attractive market where you are, so you're in that position that you can do that. Maybe you want to sell quickly. It's an estate sale, power of attorney situation. You just want it off your hands. And maybe strategy might be best to drop it just below market and do offers on a date. You're more likely to get an offer that doesn't have conditions, doesn't have a lot of expectations, and you can pick and choose which offer you decide to accept rather than begging for a good one. So just keep in mind that human nature is human nature, and it's not unusual for sellers to always think that their house is worth more than it actually is. And trust me, I've been in this business, they will come up with the craziest reasons. You know, there's a really great cross breeze from my kitchen to my living room the other houses on the block don't have. That's got to be worth at least $10,000. So sometimes even those sellers want to sell, they can be very unrealistic with their prices, and it's our job as a buyer's agent to make the seller's agent come to terms with that and handle their seller. Or maybe it's our job to just tell the buyer they're not getting it, it's time to walk away. And on the reverse side, it's our job as a listing agent to be able to discuss that with the seller. I'm not here to insult anybody or demean anybody, but I think it's pretty obvious that a cross breeze between your kitchen and your living room is not worth $10,000. I'm also here to tell you that if your furnace is 12 years old, it's not brand new. That's just the way sometimes it goes. So all I can say is in both cases, please just listen to your agent. And if you don't think your agent's giving you good advice, rather than just ignore the advice, get a new agent, because if you don't trust that agent to give you good advice, they shouldn't be your agent. And it's okay to shop around before you sign the paperwork. So just keep that in mind. But certainly if you've got a great agent and they're telling you something, listen to them. And if they're the third agent who's told you the same thing, then maybe it's not the agent. So just something to think about. If you have any real estate questions or need any advice or want to know what your house is worth, let me know. I'm here to help. Thank you.